Welcome to another episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. I'm your host, Dr. Rahban, and boy, do we have a fascinating and lovely episode for you. I am always honored, lucky, and blessed when a patient of mine has offered and is courageous enough to be on the show, because I think as listeners, I think the experience of learning is much more enhanced when there is other participants. Not only because then you don't have to hear me talk constantly, but more importantly, that comes from a personal and individual experience. So as knowledgeable as I may be, I've never had the surgeries that I'm talking about. So I think it's very useful in terms of those listening. So everybody should be grateful whenever we have a guest, because that guest has put themselves out there and is willing to participate. So welcome to the show, Denessa.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Okay. So Denessa, let's do a quick intro about who you are and where you are so we have an understanding of your demographics. So tell me a little about yourself.
Well, my name's Denessa. I was born in Bakersfield, California. I am a nurse practitioner. I work in rural health in Wasco, California. I have a 17-year-old daughter. I am married for upcoming on 6 years.
Fantastic. And so you, as a nurse practitioner, I think this is really helpful because we have guests and then we have guests. And what's the distinction between an average guest? Nothing about them makes them average, but they know about their own experience. And then one who has greater or grander experience. As a nurse practitioner, you're in the healthcare environment. So I think that allows you a broader understanding, more critical analysis than, say, somebody who knows nothing about medicine. So let's everybody keep that in mind. So Denessa's 40 years old. You are a very tall woman at 5'10". My wife's 5'11". And you have a 17-year-old daughter. And during that time, as you had said to me, you reached the heaviest you'd ever been, right?
Correct.
Okay. How much did you weigh when you were at the peak of your pregnancy?
260.
Okay, 260. And you and I talked about it. You said that, yes, the pregnancy was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will. Yeah. But you had been challenged or struggling with weight loss during your adolescence and young adulthood. Is that correct?
Yes. I didn't know it was such an issue, but I think the issue of my weight had always been there.
And the reality is that's the case with most people we have on, right? You know, however our childhood is often impacts our adulthood. And then I had 3 sisters on, beautiful sisters, and the Nash sisters, and they were amazing. And all 3 of them hit over 200 and some odd pounds, and they're 5'3" or 5'4", and their parents were overweight. And we had a whole conversation about how one gets there. At any rate, you, through nothing but sheer determination, I think you said your drug of choice was running, yes. Right? Right. And you shaved off 100 pounds, right?
Actually, it's a funny story. My grandpa, he was a runner, and he would run, 5 miles every other day. He said, if you run 100 miles, I'll give you $1,000. So
shit, I can sign me.
That very easy to make that decision, and I just fell in love with it.
That's amazing. And so you started, I always mention, I don't really care how you lose the weight. It doesn't really matter. We want for you to lose the weight because when the weight comes off, it helps your overall existence as a human being, right? Your mind, your brain, your body, your diabetes, your joints, etc. But we obviously are always excited when someone does it through diet and exercise. If you could do it surgically, no problem. But when you're able to do it with diet and exercise, it reinforces the fact that for most instances, it's a sort of a lifestyle change, right? So through running and obviously eating well, right, you were able to shave off not 20 pounds, not 40 pounds, not 100 pounds, right? You weigh 160 now?
Yes.
So unbelievable. Right there, bam, what an amazing feat, right? And because I think you did it in a way that how long did it take you to get from 260 to 160?
I would say it took about 2 years.
Right. So because it took 2 years, It means that you had a chance to adjust the way you lived. It wasn't like you took these fen-phen pills and over 2 months you shredded all this weight and all of a sudden now you're lighter, but shit, I don't know what to do. You changed the way you live, and so it's sustainable, right? And you stayed at this weight more or less, and you're in a good place in your life, right?
Really?
Right. So then, but there's ramifications to having lost 100 pounds. And so you had a baby in and of itself, there's ramifications physically from that. And then on top of it, you lost 100 pounds. So tell me where you were in your life that you looked and what triggered you to think, okay, I feel good. I don't like the way I look. I want to fix this. How do I go about doing? Tell me your journey from when you lost 100, when you got to 160 until when we met. What was that process like for you? Because I'm sure it's going to be similar for a lot of other people.
Right. I mean, I eventually wanted to get a tummy tuck. That had always been in the back of my mind, and I knew I wanted to do it before I turned 40. So prior to that, I mean, I just kind of, I just waited, saved up money, did my research, but I mean, it's been years. I knew that I wanted to take care of that at some point.
So it was that you looked at your abdomen, you lost the weight, you felt good. I'm assuming you felt amazing. You're running, so you must feel strong and healthy. And unfortunately, your skin just didn't cooperate along with the rest of your body that cooperated, right?
No matter what I did, running, weight training, it was always there. But it was just extra skin,
Right. You had a strong core. Everything was great, but you just had this loose skin. And the interesting thing about it is that people aren't really anticipating that till it happens, because there's this part of you that says, I'm going to lose this weight through diet and exercise, and I'm going to get to my endpoint. And then they get to a place and their skin is loose in many instances. And then the harder they try, AKA the fitter they get, the worse the skin gets. And it's this really weird mind game that almost every patient I've seen has experienced, which is there's a point where they sometimes go past point. They get skinnier than they actually wanted to be, thinking it would get rid of the skin, only to realize that no, this skin's not going anywhere. And oddly, it's getting worse because it's directly related to how much you weigh. And so the thinner and fitter and less body fat you have, the more skin you have. So, okay, so that was said. You knew it was happening. You had this target goal before I'm 40. You're obviously a nurse practitioner, so you know enough about medicine. So you get on a computer, you start doing homework. You live in Bakersfield.
Right.
So you didn't go down the street. Why not?
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I know where the best surgeons are, so that's where I started to do my research, and I think a lot of that you can do on social media now. So I literally typed in best surgeons in Southern California, and started to follow Instagram.
And what were you looking for as a patient / medical professional? So here I am, a woman. I'm in Kentucky. I'm listening to our story. You're like, oh, this sounds familiar. This sounds where I am. I'm somewhere in this journey, losing weight, etc. And I want to start looking for doctors, whether that be in the local Kentucky area or what I always say, wherever the hell the best guys are, because this is not one of those things where you go get your hair cut once every 4 to 6 weeks. And so you got to fly to Miami. This is a one and done. Boom, bam, finish, go home. You never see that person again. So you're going to go to Ecuador. If the people in Ecuador are hands and head over, better than everybody else. So what would you say as a nurse practitioner, bringing that element in? What are you looking for? So you go on social media or wherever, and what helps you decipher? Because there's hundreds of surgeons, right? It's not like there's 12.
I think I was really looking at reviews and results and real results, not those fake looking results.
What would trigger your suspicion? Because I comment about this all the time, right? Because we're trying to guide people as to how to make choices. So I think reviews are very helpful, but they need to be taken with a grain of salt.
Right.
Why? Because they're not, you're unable to really authenticate them, right? So if you're hearing all this like, oh, Dr. Smith is wonderful. He walks on water. Oh, Dr. Smith saved my life. But there's no real detail. No one's mentioning the office staff. No one's mentioning anything that's like, that person sounds like they know it. So that's concerning. And conversely, if you hear all these negative reviews, but they don't really have any merit, because, anyone can manipulate those reviews, but you're looking for patterns. They're helpful. What is it that you thought made a result look, oh, that looks really good versus that looks fake? What you said you were looking for real results. What did you look at and say, nah, that doesn't look right?
Well, meaning, like somebody doesn't look like a completely different individual after, they get this surgery done.
You mean they're half the size of the person that were before?
Right, exactly. That their belly button is in the correct place, that it looks, natural and real. Of course, scar placement, that's pretty important.
Right. You just hit on three really key things, right? You're looking at the end of the day, each procedure, a nose job or ear pinning or face, has this sort of telltale elements that make it real, natural, and holy crap, that looks terrible. So you hit them. One is belly buttons, right? Ugly, gnarly, weird looking belly buttons are a dead giveaway, right? You go to the beach with your kids, you're at a pool, whatever. 2, scar placement. Like, wow, that's really odd. Denessa's always wearing these really midriff, like bathing suits. Why do they halfway cover her belly? Yeah, because there's a scar that's like 2/3 up her belly. So you want one that's low. And then that weird, fully super tight look that looks like saran wrap, over-pulled look is the other thing you were mentioning. So yes, those are all very key components to the distinction between natural and not natural.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, you go online, you do your homework, you identify multiple surgeons, or you identify one surgeon. I mean, you obviously ended up with me, so we know that we know how the story ends. But
honestly, you were the only person that I ever had a consult with. I know that's terrible, but I mean, I just knew it from that one meeting.
No, I don't think it sounds terrible. I think each person goes through their own experience. Some people need to see 5 people before they feel safe, and some people are like, no, I got the gut. I know. Right. So, all right. One of the things that I think is critical is you got up and you left home. So you left Bakersfield. And so a lot of people are going to say, oh my God, you did a Bodylift, which we're going to get into. It's a big surgery. You did it away from home. Was that frightening? Was it, because at the end of the day, it would be lovely if you can do it down the street. It would be nice, but it's not necessary. So do you think that the element of, do you caution people for traveling for better surgical results? Do you encourage it? What do you think?
Oh, I encourage it. I mean, if you want the best results possible, you're gonna take the effort to travel and, stay there during your recovery process. Like, that's just, I would much rather take the time to go to a different city and make the effort to recover there than, go down the street and get something that I'm going to regret for, the rest of my life.
Right. So what you're saying is that there's no shortcuts. And that's what we always say constantly, right? There's no shortcuts. You'd like it to be quick and easy. You'd like it to be painless. You'd like it to be effortless. You'd like it to be super cheap. But this is massive. I mean, someone is going to operate on you and change your body forever. So I don't think it's unrealistic or unreasonable to think that you would have to go out of your way a little bit and be inconvenienced. So that's great. Okay, so you decided to do the surgery. You and I met. And after meeting with me, I said to you, you came in hoping, wanting, thinking, wishing for a tummy tuck. And I told you what?
I think you initially started with, how much have you weighed before, how much weight have you lost, etc. And you said that I had 2 options. And I was like, what does that mean?
2 options. Here we go. Behind curtain number 1.
So the first option was what I thought I needed, which was the tummy tuck. And the second option was the Bodylift. And when you said those words, I was kind of like, I was a little thrown off. That's definitely not what I thought that I needed.
Sure.
So you took the time and you made these markings on my body. You lifted up the skin that was there, and I honestly didn't realize how much extra skin that I had that for best results, front and back, that I needed, and sides, that I needed to take that extra step and get that full body lift.
All right. So what you said is not uncommon. I see people all the time. And what we need to do for patients, and which I wish people would do for me in life, is just lay it out there for me.
Right.
I wish my pool man would do that. I wish the guy who built the gate in front of my house would do that. Hey, here are your options. Option 1, 2, and 3. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3. This is what I suggest and why. And here are the reasons I don't think the other ones are not good. Then, with all the information available, I'll make the best choice for me. And then I will be absolutely okay with whatever the outcome is, because I made an intelligent and informed decision. What happens every day is people, especially in medicine, tell you what you need or they think you need, and that's it.
Or what you want to hear.
Yeah, well, that's the worst. They tell you what you want to hear, or they tell you what you don't want to hear, but then don't explain you why. And then that's all you have. So yes, we met, and it's not uncommon because listen, you're an in-betweener. What does that mean? You had one child, so you had a little bit of mommy elements, and you lost a lot of weight, so you had a little bit of what's called weight loss, massive weight loss elements, right? So you're fit and you're tall. So you're not the classic standard body lift patients you see online, which is you have loose skin that's so prevalent and so obvious that there's no way for you not to know that. You came in and yes, your abdomen was unarguably the main event. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I told you that a body lift was necessary was not because, oh, that's more expensive and that's good for me. It's because when we fold and remove the loose skin of your abdomen, because your abdomen is connected to your thighs and your thighs are connected to your butt, there is a transition from tight to loose. Like we have to stop somewhere. There isn't this arbitrary transition, boom, we're done. So the front of you is super tight and your thighs and your butt are whatever they were for someone who lost 100 pounds. And so when I would bend the skin and I would roll it outwards, you and I could see that while it wasn't a tremendous amount of skin, it was enough skin that I believed you would be dissatisfied. That's the key. You would be dissatisfied. It would be like having a Ferrari with 3 wheels. Yeah, I have a Ferrari, but something's not... You would have not been stoked, excited. Wow, now all the running is working and I can wear all these dresses, because there would have been something left behind. And so because yours was a subtle, meaning subtle in that you didn't have overt skin, someone, a doctor, needs to show you. And then you can say, nah, that doesn't bother me. I don't care. That doesn't bother me at all. Me and my husband don't care. It doesn't bother me. As long as I get rid of this loose skin on my belly, I'm rocking and rolling. Great. So then we don't expect you to come back and be like, yo, what's this stuff on the side here? What do you mean, what's the stuff? It wasn't there before. Oh, it was there before. It just was overshadowed by your abdomen. Your abdomen is now fixed, and now all you're going to do is pay attention to what is still there. So that's really important. And I think that's what you want when you go see a doctor, spine surgeon, et cetera, especially in plastic surgery. There is almost always a best option, but there's almost always at least another, if not 2 options. And I think it's a doctor's job to explain that to you so that when you decide to take this certain route, you know why you did it, and then you can accept all that comes with it. So we chose to do a body lift, which for those listening means basically a tummy tuck of the front and a tummy tuck of the back. So the incision starts in the front and wraps 360 all the way around. And what it does is, that's why the term is body lift, is it gives you a tummy tuck, same thing as a tummy tuck, except it lifts your thighs on the sides and it lifts some of your buttock by removing the redundancy on the side and on the back. And it completes the circle such that your body is now uniform and just cohesive. It's one piece. It feels like it all belongs. Would you agree?
Yes.
Is that how you feel?
I do, but also the sides.
Right. What about also the which?
The sides, I mean, really, you're doing not just the back, not just the front, but, you have extra skin on the side too.
Right. And you feel snug, you feel tight, right. You feel, especially for a runner. So we're going to do a quick break. We're going to come back because I know everyone's like, awesome, but that sounds like a big surgery. Holy shit. I imagine the recovery is like twice as bad as a tummy tuck. Oh my, I don't think I can do it. I want it, but I can't do it. So we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the recovery. We're going to talk about the risk. And then most importantly, what everyone always wants to know, we're going to talk about how it all ended up making you feel and how this has impacted your life. Because really that's what this is all about, right? This is all about, I did X in order to have this change in lifestyle. That's really the point. All right, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back. The second half of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. Welcome back to the second half of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. We are diving deep into the Bodylift experience with Denessa, my wonderful patient who is doing a great job because, she's a little anxious about this whole podcast thing. And I'm telling her she's awesome. She's a regular. We may even have you as my co-host moving on.
Okay. Wouldn't go that far, but thanks.
Okay. All right. So people are like, tummy tuck, it's awful, painful, horrible, hunched over. Oh my God, you're going to do a body lift? That must be like tummy tuck on steroids. And I try to tell people that it's not that way. Or let me rephrase that. It ought not be that way. Tummy tucks are not a walk in the park. But by no means are they, as they are described generally online, as in this horrific, unbearable experience in which you basically are just suffering for 2 to 4 to 6 weeks. It just isn't that way. And I have had hundreds and hundreds of patients write testimonials and confirm that it can be reasonably tolerable and pretty straightforward. So people are like, oh, I do a body lift, but there's just no way I can tolerate it. I think I'm going to die in recovery. So what's your experience?
So yeah, I don't think it would, a tummy tuck would be much different. The only real pain that I had was in my stomach or my abdomen.
Right, which is the tummy tuck part, right?
Right. I had no pain in the back of me. I wouldn't have even known that I had incisions, from the side to the back unless, I knew what I did. So I was in pain for the first couple days, and it was a lot of like cramping type pain, but you provide medication that helped relieve that pain and helped you through those first couple days. And honestly, I don't think I wouldn't have known that I had anything done, but besides my stomach and my abdomen area.
Right. So perfect. That's what I tell people. I say, listen, it's basically a tummy tuck with a little extra, but it's not because the part of an abdominoplasty, a tummy tuck, that is uncomfortable, not unbearable, not gut-wrenching, but uncomfortable is the muscle repair, which we do in most instances because the muscle is separated. In order to get a really strong core, we need to repair the diastasis. When we repair the muscle, you get kind of a burning, I've done a bunch of sit-ups, it's spasmy kind of feel. The incisions are skin and fat. Skin and fat, breast reductions, breast lifts, body lifts, skin and fat have essentially no pain. 1 or 2 days later, boom, they're gone. So what you experience is abdominoplasty pain. So why I try to tell people is despite the fact that it's this so-called massive surgery, yes, a tummy tuck takes on average 3 hours, a body lift on average takes 6 hours. It's not 6 hours more. It's not double the pain. It's just double the work because I'm doing exactly the same amount of closing on the back half of your front half. And I have to turn you a bunch of times while you're asleep and you're not helping. You're useless. You're just laying there and I have to move you. So it takes time, but time doesn't equate to pain. So what you just literally stated is what I state all the time and what I tell patients is that you should expect a body lift to be essentially the same as a tummy tuck. Yeah. No more discomfort, no more recovery. And I tell people you can go back to work at 2 weeks. What do you mean? My friend had a blah, blah, blah. you can go back to work in 2 weeks. I didn't say you could go work at UPS at 2 weeks. I said you can go back to a regular job at 2 weeks.
Right.
So, and then the discomfort, how long did it last? The part that's like surgical discomfort, not like, oh, I had procedure done. Like, wow, this is unpleasant. How long did that last?
I would say 2 days.
So I tell patients to expect 3 to 5 days. And I tell that because I want to be overly cautious.
Right.
But I really think the overwhelming majority of patients say 2 to 3 days and that sort of burning feeling went away. That is, by the way, manageable with medication.
Yeah.
So that's why we tell you by the end of 1 week, you feel okay.
Oh, yeah.
You don't feel phenomenal, but you feel okay. And by the end of second week, you feel like, I feel pretty okay. I'm not going to go run a marathon, but I don't feel like a truck ran over me anymore. That's the average patient. So, and let's talk about your recovery. So, because everyone's curious about this body lift. Like, I can tell them it's exactly the same as a tummy tuck, more or less. So, you had a body lift. How was your recovery, let's say, from week 1 to week 6? Because after 6 weeks, I do what? I tell you to go lift. Like, go play tennis, go hike. So it's irrelevant. So 1 to 6 weeks, what was the recovery like?
I mean, the first week, of course, first 2 days are not that much fun, but manageable, with medication. By the end of the first week, I was, I had to be hunched over, but I was up, not doing chores or being super strenuous, but moving, to the bathroom, to the kitchen, still resting and doing what I was, told to do. The second week was when I think I started to feel really good.
Second week? How's that even possible? You're lying.
The end of the second week.
You started feeling normal-ish? Wait a minute. My friend had a tummy tuck and she was horrible for 8 months. I had a friend who was hunched over for 5 years. I mean, I can't tell you the number of people I hear this from. So we can only tell you how it's supposed to be. And by the end of the second week, you're supposed to start feeling pretty good. You had mentioned we keep you hunched over. We keep you mildly hunched over the first week because we're trying to decompress and remove tension off the incision, not because you're so tight like everyone else who does the surgery, but because we want the blood supply at the end to be okay. Literally at the end of the week, I tell you to stand straight.
Yeah.
There are lots of doctors that remove a boatload of skin. If you remove a boatload of skin, you will be as tight as a tambourine. Then at the end of 1 week, you will feel tight. There's skin missing. And when you eventually stand up, your scar will be halfway up your abdomen. So we do have you hunched over a little. And then I tell you at the end of what? A week.
Mm-hmm.
Start standing straight. And you were standing straight.
Yes.
And at the end of 2 weeks, what did you do?
I took an extra week off because I was, scared to go back to work. But at the end of the second week, I was like picking up my daughter from school,
Right.
myself meals, walking around the house.
There you have it. That's after a body lift.
Right.
That is, I want people to listen so they understand. They don't need to be petrified. They need to be realistic. You need help. You're not going to go and like leave after a body lift and go to your own apartment. But it's not what is so often perceived as this horrendous experience. And so here you are, live human being who's stating that at the end of the second week, I was, went to go pick up my kids. I was walking around the kitchen. I was fairly self-sufficient. I tell you 2 weeks because I want people not to be under financial duress. If you have the luxury of taking an extra week, great, all the better. But if you had to and you had to go back to your job and it was, again, not a labor-intensive job, you would be just fine. You would have managed okay. So we're going to shift gears about risks and complications. Did you have any complications?
No.
Thank God. Okay, so that's good news. So we try to avoid complications, and complications should be rare, not impossible. So what are the complications? Complications in general, if done correctly in a good surgeon's office, should be somewhere under 5%. That means it's incredibly rare, but not impossible. So the risks associated with any procedure are bleeding and infection. What's special in the instance of body body work, breast, body, whatever, are scars. People are horrified, petrified they're going to look like Frankenstein. You are a beautiful, tall, attractive woman who now has this horrible Frankenstein scar around your abdomen. It must be horrible to be able to interact with your loved ones and your husband and see yourself in the mirror. Isn't that so?
Absolutely not. I thought it would. I honestly thought that it might. Obviously, I wouldn't have done it if I really thought that it was going to bother me, or if I really thought it was going to bother my husband, and it truly doesn't bother me whatsoever. And it's only been 6 months. I can progressively see that it's lightening. It's truly not what people think that this scar is going to be. But that's because of, the surgeon that I chose too. I think a lot of people choose surgeons who don't take that personal touch and do what you do. How many sutures did you do?
Probably 500.
Right. So
it's painful. What I do for you is what I do for everyone, which I wish I didn't have to do. So I don't want to sit there and close all this shit.
Oh yeah.
I don't just close it like I just don't whip it together. I close it layer after layer. So there's a deep layer, then there's a middle layer, then there's a top layer, then there's just no way around it. So what we're going to refer to is correctly done and incorrectly done. When correctly done at 6 months, you should have a relatively light scar. It will have color, right? It will be either a little red, a little purple, a little pink. It will have color. When will the color go away? At 18 months, you're a fair-skinned individual. I guarantee you, I promise you, when I see you at a year and a half, your scar will be almost the color of your body. Awesome. It should be relatively thin. It shouldn't be wide and gapping. When does that happen? When you're so tight that the tension pulls that scar apart. Is yours currently really wide?
No, not at all.
Right. It should be like a thong level width. Right. And then the last thing is it should be flat. It shouldn't be this ropey thing that you can close your eyes and rub your finger over and you're like, what's that bump? Oh, nothing. That's just my scar. Just ignore it. Is your scar raised?
No.
Okay, so you have a good and appropriate scar, which is on its way to healing, which will be healed at 18 to 24 months. Alternatively, you do this procedure. You get rid of that flap of skin, all that stuff that you hate. Yes, it's a good trade-off, but then you're traded off with some gnarly barbed wire-looking scar. It's arguable if that's a really good trade-off, because what you're doing is you're exchanging one insecurity for another.
Right.
And if that was the only way, then it's the only way. Like my wife's had 4 spine surgeries. She's got these large scars on her back. There was no other way. So it was what we had to do. But if there are alternatives, which is like, I don't have to have a heinous scar, it could look good, then that would be ideal. And there is absolutely, you hit it on the head, no shortcut. There's no magic cream. There is no laser. There is no nothing. I don't care what anyone tells you in the universe. There is nothing that will replace a diligent, time-consuming, conscientious closure. And no one will do that but your surgeon. They just won't. And it's time-consuming. That's what it is. So scars are a real concern. And then there's the dreaded necrosis. Dun, dun. That's when the really not ominous music comes in. Dun, dun, dun. So what the hell is necrosis? It's ischemia, necrosis, or fancy terms for dead skin. Blood supply. Blood, it turns black. Gangrene, dead toe, it's not alive. Whoa. What could die? The belly button can die because you're cutting around it and moving it to a new location. And your scar edge, right above your scar, can die because the blood supply is not really good there. So that's a catastrophic kind of complication because that skin then has to be removed and then you don't have it. It's gone. So that usually occurs in either people who have illnesses like diabetes or blood pressure or cholesterol or smokers, or shitty done surgery. Things are pulled too tight. Too tight, too much was removed. And when you try to bring the damn thing together, you are putting so much tension on the tissue doesn't get its blood supply. So is your scar, can you wear a bathing suit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have to go buy some special granny bathing suit? Like, do you have to buy some, like Fruit of the Loom undies?
No,
No,
absolutely
no. So that's what happens. It gets pulled up. So necrosis is a big one. That's a big, oh my God, horrific, terrible. And then there are wound complications. The wound opens up here and there. It did gaps. Then you got to do wound care. It didn't heal all the way. It's these things that just keep occurring. And then at the end, you're scarred and it looks terrible. So those are the main surgical risks. There is one final risk, which is called pulmonary embolus. Pulmonary embolus is a blood clot that goes from your legs to your lungs. And it's rare, but it's definitely not impossible. And it occurs in people who have had surgeries, especially in their legs and their torsos. And it's a big deal because you can die. That's like you get up, you walk, boom, it hits your lungs, you die. And your surgeon needs to do a lot of things in the background to prevent you from getting it. And those things are give you a blood thinner during surgery, which a lot of surgeons don't because they're afraid you're going to bleed during surgery. So we give you heparin. They got to put these compression things on your legs during your surgery. And then the most important thing is they get you to walk immediately. So you woke up from anesthesia, you were groggy, you were uncomfortable. And then what happened? You walked.
Yeah, I walked out of the surgery center.
Yeah, you walked your ass out of the surgery center, right?
Right.
And then what'd you do that night?
I mean, I was in bed most of the time, but I would walk to the bathroom.
Right. Well, why don't we just let you lay there for a few days? For God's sakes, just let her rest.
Circulation.
We don't want you getting a blood clot.
Right.
So these are the things that your surgeon has to pay attention to. The surgery's done. I'm over. It's not my problem anymore. No, it is your problem. The aftercare is your problem.
Right.
Your problem is the patient from A to Z. Z means I am done, healthy, happy, joyous. Not A, I did my surgery and it's all done. So that's the main risks associated with it. Obviously, you touched on it. I'll just retouch on it. These are not risks, but these are the goals. Ugly belly buttons are top number one screw up of surgeons with tummy tucks and body lifts. Ugly belly buttons, round, big, disc shaped, slit-like. There is no, and I underscore fixing that. You can mimic, you can try to fix it. I get a call or 1 or 2 a week of people calling me, asking me if I could fix their belly button done elsewhere. So that's the disaster. Super high riding scar. Aside from it looking like shit, it's too high. It's like every time I reach up to the top cabinet, it kind of comes above my jeans. It's game over. There's nothing you can do. You can never, ever bring it down. You'd have to have 2 more kids or gain 100 pounds for you to be able to fix that. Dog ears. Dog ears are like weird skin excess things on the sides. I wear a certain dress and it kind of like lumps out. Those are all the sort of aesthetic faux pas. They're not medical dangerous things, but they really ruin the goal and the aesthetics. All right, and we're going to wrap it up here, but we're going to wrap it up with the most important thing. What's the most important thing, Denessa?
I feel great.
That is the most important thing. I want you to reiterate that nice and loud and with confidence.
I feel great.
Right. That's what we did this for. That's what the podcast is for. That's why you went through this journey. That's why you spent this money. That's why I went to surgery and operated on you. We did all of this shit, not for you to look great. We did all of this for you to feel great. It turns out that in this instance, when you look great, you feel great. So if we did all this and you weren't great, what a complete total waste of time. So people want to know how you feel. How has this impacted your life? How does this impacted your interpersonal relationship? I am a huge fan of how this impacts people's relationships with others because it's a selfish thing, right? You're doing it for yourself. You didn't do it for your husband. You didn't do it for your 6, 17. You didn't do it for anyone but yourself. So it's selfish. I do it for myself, which is totally cool. But it affects other people because you affect other people. So tell me a little about all the good stuff.
I mean, clothes just fit so much better. Every single day for the past 20 years, I've been wearing like a compression, like a tank top, like compression tank top. and I never went anywhere without it. I rarely left the house without it unless I was wearing like a baggy sweater or something. And I could have gone without it, but that was just my personal choice. I didn't feel comfortable without it, and I haven't had to wear it once since I had my surgery, and that feels really, really good.
It's amazing.
I just feel so much better in clothes. I feel comfortable. I just feel better not to have that extra skin around my stomach.
What about your interaction with your husband? I'm sure he loved you, skin, heavy, short, mastectomy. It doesn't matter. Let's say he all that is true.
Right.
But what about your interaction?
That interaction, I think he's of course, yeah, he loves me regardless. He would have loved me if I didn't do it. But my self-esteem has helped our relationship. Meaning, I feel much more comfortable around him being naked. It's yeah.
You have said what I have heard 100,000 times, which is my partner loves me either way, but my relationship is better not because my partner sees me differently, but I see myself differently, which then allows me to be more comfortable around them, which indirectly has enhanced our relationship. So it's almost always the change that comes from within.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't like, wow, you look so good, honey. Now I'm more attracted to you. It's more like, I feel so great. I feel attractive. And then you are. And I think that's my favorite part about this, because I think it shows how powerful this is, because then all of a sudden you have a woman who never turned on the lights, who hasn't been intimate in years, who hasn't let their husband grab their belly, who I can tell you 100 variations of this, who's never worn a sexy pair of undergarments, who hasn't blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, literally overnight, I mean that within a couple of weeks, bam, it's changed. And you are released of that burden. And it's a big, big component. And this just happens to be the Bodylift journey. It could be the nose. It can be whatever. So last final recommendations. So I always like to get recommendations. I am a man or woman sitting somewhere listening to this podcast. I have either about to undergo my weight loss journey, or I have had my weight loss journey. What are your recommendations to us?
Start saving your money and start doing your research.
Okay, I like those. Save money. Why?
Because it can be inexpensive, but if you want it done right, you're gonna have to shell out some money.
It is expensive. It's expensive.
Right.
It's expensive in that whatever it is that you can get from Dr. A, who's okay, is going to cost more from Dr. B because he or she is better. So it's expensive. And the sooner you start to save, the less pressure the finances will bring on your life. Exactly. As opposed to, I'm ready, and then you're not in a financial place to do it. It's a very difficult place to be, where you're unhappy and then you don't have the finances. And then you got to start saying, how do I refine my house? It makes it worse. So that's great advice. And then you said, start your research. How long in advance did you start research?
It was a few years. Or, I mean, I've had this on my mind since I was in my 30s. So, I mean, I would say probably 10 years.
So you're suggesting research at least a few years?
Yes, at least a few years. Obviously not 10 years, but,
Yeah, but we've heard that a lot, right? A lot of the patients I see, these are not impulsive decisions. They're not like, you know what? I saw this ad with you in it. It was I was watching the Super Bowl, and then there was this blimp, and you showed up. I was like, you know what? I need a nose job.
Yeah.
That's just generally not how this goes. It's one of those things that I've been perseverating, contemplating, researching for 2, 4, 6 years. I've been following these number of doctors, and I think I'm ready. So those are great, great pieces of advice. Well, awesome. What do you know? You've survived 40 plus minutes of dialogue. You should feel proud of yourself. That's awesome.
Yeah, trying my
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, well, you did a great job. And I think for most people, having these conversations is it's something they want to keep private.
I, education is important, and obviously I'm a nurse practitioner, so the more you can educate people and get other people's opinions and get opinions from people who have actually been through it, I think that's really valuable. And I hope that I was able to do that for some people.
Absolutely. I assure you, because the reality is that it just takes one person's iteration to make sense to you, to unlock the journey for you. And you don't know who that's going to be. You don't know which review, which photo, which dialogue. So you just put it out there. And the thing is, my philosophy, the overwhelming majority of information out there is shit. It's misleading. It's manipulative. It's marketing driven. And I think that people have great potential to have great outcomes if they're just given the right information. So all we can do is just, if you and me are both in medicine, and you, of course, are a journey-driven individual from having had your experience, all we can do is put it out there. And I think we did a great job, and you were awesome. And as always, I'm always grateful, because, everyone wants to just do this and move on. Nobody really wants to share their story. It's private, but it really makes a huge difference. So thank you very, very much. All right, guys. That's it. That's a wrap. That's the episode. So a couple of things. As always, if you enjoy the show, please go write something positive. Go write something nice. We really appreciate the input, the reviews, the comments. I look at all of them. If you have nothing positive to say, please don't write anything. No, all kidding aside, if you can share your thoughts, we love it. It helps us drive the podcast. Secondly, the whole existence of the podcast is for the purpose of educating people. So share this with friends, family, those that you love. You never know who's looking and who's going to do it in private. So the more you spread the word, download and subscribe, you just put it out there and people will figure it out. So we really greatly appreciate it. And then join us next week on the next episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. Until then, have a wonderful week.